Well, hello and welcome to the Office of Volunteer Engagement's regular volunteer Teletown Hall. We're delighted that you're joining us today, November 14th. We are in the midst of National Veterans and Militaries Month, so it's appropriate that the topic of our conversation will center on AARP's connections to veterans, military, and their family. And we are delighted that you are joining us. This is an opportunity where we can both share information, but as always, we love to hear from you. We love to hear what your experience has been in working with veterans in your area and ideas that you have that we should be mindful of, what works, because those are the kinds of things that we want our state offices and their volunteer partners to be able to take full advantage of it. So again, we welcome that, and at any point during the conversation, if you'd like to share a question or a comment, you can simply press *3 on your telephone keypad. Again, that's *3 if you'd like to make a question or comment during our conversation today. I am delighted that we have two of AARP's key leads, for all of AARP's outreach for veterans, militaries, and their family. And those gentlemen are Steve Carter and Pete Jeffries. Steve is a senior advisor with the Office of Community Engagement, and he began his work with the state office doing legislative work in Ohio, Michigan, Iowa, and Indiana. He had those Midwest states covered. He's also served as the manager of state operations for the Illinois state office, so he has quite a bit of familiarity and experience both reaching out across the country and working with state offices, and also that important role that we see in communities. Steve, welcome.
Good afternoon, Megan. How are you?
Thank you so much. And we also are joined by Steve's partner in this massive effort, Pete Jeffries. Pete is part of AARP's campaigns team, and he serves as officially as the title of Senior Advisor for Voter Engagement, but you'll find Pete in all different roles where he's building on his experience as AARP's Congressional Relations and Political Affairs Director. And he also served, and it's a unique distinction, he was the longest-serving Communications Director for a speaker in the U.S. House of Representatives, Dennis Hastert. And Pete, too, travels the country like Steve does, working very closely with all sides of the aisle, particularly the conservative viewpoint, helping to make sure that AARP is bringing the best resources possible and listening and responding to the needs of people who are over 50 and their families. Pete, welcome. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Megan. It's great to be here. A little bit chilly in the heartland of America in Des Moines, Iowa.
Well, and I know Steve's in Chicago, so we've got some of the chillier parts of the country covered for sure. So one of the things that we want to do in today's conversation, as I mentioned, is not only share information about the Voluntary Military and Their Families Initiative, which we call VMF for short, and AARP, as I know our volunteers know, we are never shy in using acronyms. So when we reference VMF, you'll know that we're talking about veterans, military, and their families, because this is a type of effort that we want to be all-encompassing. But not only will we share the information, we want to hear from you and about your experiences working with the veterans in your area or within your own family. And to do that, once again, simply press *3 on your telephone keypad. And we have one more element of our conversation today, and that is where I will be joined by one of my colleagues, Carole, who will provide an update on a new way to recognize veterans or the entities that support veterans. We have a special contest that's going on and want to make sure that all of our participants on today's phone call have the benefit of hearing about. So again, I look forward to you being part of this conversation. And one of the first things that I'd love to do is just to get a pulse from our participants today about your personal connection to veterans, military, and others in their family who may have served. So this is a quiz, easy one, where using your telephone, I'd like you to press either 1 or 2, 1 for yes or 2 for no. And the question is, are you yourself a veteran, a member of the military currently, or have a member of your family who has served or is currently serving? So somehow do you have that connection to the veterans and military community because you yourself are a veteran? Perhaps you have a family of the who's a family member who's in the military or is serving or has served. If the answer is yes, please press 1 on your telephone keypad and 2 for no. but we know you're still interested in this topic because you've joined us today as we look at AARP's work and outreach to veterans, military, and their families. And already the participants, Pete and Steve, have told us that 80% have either themselves served in the military and are a veteran or are serving. They have a family member who is or was serving, and it's one of those things where we love to make sure that the conversations that we have are very relevant, and I think we're right on track today as well. So keep answering that question. If you are a veteran member of the military or have a family member who is serving now or has served, simply press 1 for yes or 2 for no. So let's begin our conversation. Again, we have Pete Jeffries and Steve Carter, who lead AARP's Veterans, Military, and Their Families effort. And I appreciate it, Pete, if you give us a bit of the basics here about what is AARP doing in terms of reaching out to those who are currently or have served in the armed forces. What's the nature of our work thus far?
Happy to do so, Megan. And just a reminder for folks to use those keypads, I would be pressing number 1 for yes, because I am the son of a Korean War combat veteran who served in an artillery unit over in Korea. And I also, at the end of my father's life, served as one of his caregivers. So a lot of that brings my own personal passion to this work on a daily basis, and it really is a labor of love. So let's talk about, in the broader perspective, what brings AARP to the table in serving this marketplace and this special audience of veterans, military, and their families. First and foremost, there are 18.5 million living veterans across the country, and believe it or not, AARP has identified 4 million of whom are AARP members. So we've actually been serving this population. It goes back to the 1960s when one of our top staffers at the time, and happened to be a naval reservist, found out that many Vietnam veterans at the time were missing out on all of the earned tax benefits because of their military service. That's what sprung and was born out of it was the tax aid program. So I'm guessing that some of your volunteers on the phone today participate in tax aid, which has become the largest free tax preparation done by volunteers across the country, and it serves millions of people, and it has an economic benefit in the billions of dollars that people are saving on their taxes each and every year. So if you are part of the tax aid program, thank you for that. Taking another look at what AARP brings to the table, we clearly have a number of our values and programs that match up with what veterans need as of now, as they're aging, what their families need for some of the supports and resources and tools to improve everyone's quality of life. We'll talk more about those specific elements as the dialogue goes along, but we just want to be sure that folks understand that AARP has a great role to serve here, and it goes back to our founder who said to serve, not to be served. And whether it be on caregiving or fraud or working jobs or even helping to connect people to navigate the VA benefits system, those are some of the things that we bring to the table, and we're going to talk more about more deeply here coming up.
Well, thank you, Pete. And it's a very big audience of people who could benefit from the work that AARP and our volunteers and so many others are doing to truly show that support and appreciation for those who are or have served. So, Steve, with that as a bit of a background and gives us context about the lay of the land and the size of the audience, can you tell us a little bit about how you and Pete are organizing with our state colleagues this whole VMF, Veterans, Military, and Their Families effort? Are there key areas of focus?
Sure, absolutely, Megan. So good afternoon, everyone. And also, like Peter, I am the son of a former naval officer who served during the Vietnam War. And my oldest son is currently pursuing military service as well in the United States Navy. So, Megan, you asked about how we've organized this work. So Pete and I lead a team of about 15, 16 colleagues from across AARP between our national office and our state offices, and several of our state office team members who are colleagues of ours are either active duty or have served in the military prior to coming to work for AARP. So we have their expertise and their experience and their keen eye for what's important to this audience. So this team has put together a strategy for the next 3 years. It focuses on 4 key areas in caregiving, and it's really about preparing family caregivers to meet the unique needs of veterans through distribution of information and awareness, and Pete's going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. We've got some really exciting things coming up. Fraud, as we know, a lot of scam artists target veterans, so we're looking to provide timely and topical information and resources on the top scams that are affecting veterans, and also grow our partnership with the United States Postal Inspection Service that we call Operation Protect Veterans. In the area of work and jobs, we're looking to improve the employment of veterans and military families with tools and resources that can help them find jobs online and in community. And then Pete referenced also the earned benefits. We're working to empower veterans, military, and families to maximize earned benefits that they've earned through their military service, both in the military and civilian worlds. And as Pete mentioned, also what we're launching in 2020 is expanded resources and tools to help people navigate through healthcare options between Medicare, TRICARE, VA Health, et cetera.
Very big, important areas of work. And as you said, Steve, we do want to delve into each one of those core areas of work and how AARP is organizing its outreach to veterans, military, and their families. And for those who've just joined us, thank you very much. You are having a conversation with Steve Carter and Pete Jeffries, who lead AARP's VMF effort. And as you heard, it is an audience of roughly 18.5 million Americans across the country who are impacted and can be touched through this work. And there is a large team of AARP colleagues who are helping to guide this work. And it becomes very personal. You've heard both Pete and Steve reference their own personal story. And that's why I was interested in starting our conversation with whether our participants today are a veteran, a member of the military, or have a family member who is or has been, who is currently serving or has served. And 81% of you, in fact, have that connection to someone who has served. So we are appreciative of those efforts and know that this work is very important. So let's continue then and pick up the thread of the conversation with Pete and Steve, looking at some of these core areas. And one of the first areas that was just referenced was caregiving and how AARP is offering support and resources in that area. So Pete, can you kick us off with that and what's happening in that particular area?
Absolutely. And let's do a quick reset for folks. If you are sitting in front of a computer, log on to our veterans page, which is aarp.org/veterans. That's aarp.org/veterans. The reason I point you there is that you go halfway down that page and you'll find our caregiving section, which we referenced as basically one of the first of 4 pillars that we want to take into the community and engage our veterans and military families audience with. We worked with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation over the last 18 months, and this past June we released the Military Caregiving Guide for veterans and their families. And it's about a 42-page document, but it goes through soup to nuts on everything that a family caregiver would want to know, need to know about the journey ahead. And in fact, one of the things that folks, when they look at the guide and flip through it, they immediately respond positively to is that towards the back of the caregiving guide, it has checklists of where families can make notes and put in the information that they need so that they can stay on track as far as providing the best care possible for their hero patient. So when we're talking about caregiving, there's more than just the caregiving guide as well, and that's why we want to try to drive as many folks to click on aarp.org/veterans, because all of our content, programming, issue areas are presented there, including, if you look at it today, the lead story on AARP.org/veterans is about deals and discounts during November. Who doesn't like saving a few bucks when they go out for a meal or go out for some entertainment or just for any type of routine purchases? So the lead story this week is about those deals and discounts. You can click that and be, guided towards where you can save a few bucks. I'm going to stop there and let Steve pick up and talk a little bit more about fraud as well as work and jobs.
Yes, well,
Thank you.
It's Steve, we really welcome this because all of us are at risk for fraud, and it's particularly prevalent, unfortunately, within the veterans community and their families. So really looking forward to hearing what you can share about some of these resources with fraud and also work and jobs.
Absolutely. Thank you, Megan. So in the area of fraud, since this is Veterans and Military Families Month, we're putting out an emphasis on informing veterans about the type of scams specifically that target veterans. And this is based on the data that we've assembled is based on information from a mailing we did last year, inviting our own members who are veterans to talk about and share their experience of being targeted for fraud. So we've got actually a state breakout of the different types of scams that they've been, that people have approached them about trying to perpetrate. So right now we're working with our state offices across the country to place op-eds that basically lay out this information about what type of scams have been most prevalent in their specific state. So we're hoping to get a lot of those placed so we can draw attention to this issue. I also referenced the work that we do with United States Postal Inspection Service, and they're on the front line as a federal agency of rooting out fraud. And we have a really strong partnership with them that we put together a few years ago, and looking to build on that in the future. So a lot happening there, and more happening in 2020.
Well, thank you.
So in the area of work,
go ahead.
Well, all I was going to add, Steve, is that also referencing our partnership with the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, just so everybody knows, they are the law enforcement arm of the Postal Service. And that close collaboration has really helped to strengthen our fraud watch efforts overall, because we can share information as people report it, i.e., if you are a veteran, if you are a military family member, if you're a family member of anyone with former military service, and you think that a fraudster is on your phone trying to sneak through your computer and into your email, things of that sort, we urge you to go to either our AARP.org/veterans site, or you can go directly to AARP.org/fraud watch network, and you can self-report right then and there, so that we get that information. We can then alert, our fraud watch team can alert law enforcement authorities, because part of the success of Operation Protect Veterans is real-time sharing of information. And these scams and cons come and go so quickly that we're really dependent and reliant on people sharing that information as it's basically on your doorstep. So unfortunately, when it comes to veterans and military fraud, this population is twice as likely to be targeted by con artists than the civilian population. It's despicable, it's sad, but it's also the truth. And that's why if folks can join our effort, we can not only help to protect yourself and your family members, but a much, much larger population at large.
Wow. Twice as likely to be scammed. That's just, as you said, despicable. And all the more reason why we want to create this community of support, as you said, Pete, with real-time sharing to help make sure that scams that are spotted can be stopped just as quickly as possible. So such important work there. And Steve, as you were saying, there are resources there, both that you can find on the AARP.org/veterans page, but also on the Fraud Watch Network, AARP.org/fraud. So let's continue on. Steve, let's go to another area for us, please.
Sure. So in the area of work and jobs, and this is an area that we're really looking to expand on as we go into 2020, as you know, there's a lot of people transitioning out of the military who are looking for a new career post-military service and often find that transition to the civilian workforce somewhat of a challenge. So a few of the things that we're working on for 2020 include, we've just recently updated the job board that AARP uses, and this is a site where prospective employers will post jobs that they have that target the 50-plus workforce, and we've created basically a link on there for veterans to look for and identify jobs offered by employers who are looking for and prioritizing veterans as they do their hiring. So it really allows prospective employers to connect with people transitioning out of the military or people with former military service. So it's a new feature that we've added to the AARP job board. The other thing we're exploring in 2020 is a partnership with community colleges across the country. Many community colleges are now offering training and certification programs in advanced manufacturing. And there's a lot of veterans coming out of military service who have those skills but could really use additional certification to be able to be more viable in the job market. So what we're looking to do is to provide discounts for AARP members who are former military coming out to get the training through these community colleges and have the proper training and certification for the type of manufacturing jobs in the 21st century. So it's a really exciting thing that we're launching in 2020, and we'll grow that over the next 3 years.
Wow, that is huge and could be a real game changer for sure. So what's the best way, again, to learn more about the job board and these kinds of resources?
Going to aarp.org/veterans, and there'll be a link to the job board there.
Fabulous, fabulous. Now, you also mentioned, Steve and Pete, that there's this effort, again, on these earned benefits and helping make sure that people don't leave things on the table. Any other points that we want to raise on that particular area?
Peter, go ahead.
Also at aarp.org/veterans, while the lead story is on deals and discounts, this is a pretty special month for us because in May and November, we specifically want to honor and salute those who served as well as their spouses by promoting a 30% membership discount. I know folks that are on the line here are all AARP members, but not everybody outside of this phone call is. And so that's one of the things that we can take directly to year-round. We can take to those who ask about, well, why should I join AARP? Well, one of the things is we value veterans in military service and sacrifice, and we want to give back to them literally by helping them save some money by joining AARP. Other things include a lot of our community forums, which I think we'll have a chance to talk about here coming up. But many of our states are finding local veterans groups to collaborate with that can help veterans and military families navigate their way through a very cumbersome VA benefits process. When it comes to the benefits side of the equation, we never say that we are the experts on that. But what we do well is we try to collaborate and convene with those that do have the expertise. Because if we know that this is a need of the veterans and military community, we want to find ways to deliver solutions. And so community forums and those kinds of collaborations are really paying off in a number of our states.
Well, that's fabulous. And again, having partners who really can help, we can help draw on their expertise and resources and expand the reach, particularly making sure that those earned benefits are not left on the table. So we would like to open this conversation to our volunteers who are participating today. If you have an experience, a thought, an idea, letting us know how it's going as you work with veterans in your community, in your state, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. Again, we'd love to hear from you, and knowing that over 80% of our participants in today's call have a connection to veterans, military, and their families. And we want to hear about the work that you're doing and the difference that AARP can make in your view. I received a question or two ahead of the call from Kansas. There was a a volunteer, Janice, who was asking about support that AARP can help make available or more people aware of for those members of our communities who have served and may be suffering with PTSD or some other kind of trauma. Are you, Pete and Steve, finding that are there entities or resources that we can help bring to the forefront to help people who are trying to deal with those who may have some lasting effect from their service?
Sure.
So
Megan,
one of our... Okay, go ahead, Steve.
Sure. So a number of our state offices conduct community programs and what are often called resource fairs in communities across the country, often working with state and local agencies. I was in one in Philadelphia this summer where there was a gentleman who talked about the struggles that he's had with PTSD over, the years since serving in Vietnam. And we were able to connect him with the person who leads the Veteran Service Agency for the city of Philadelphia right there, and they were able to talk and be able to connect him with resources going forward. We've also had a few state offices that have done some local programming with entities that interact with veterans who are dealing with PTSD. So, Peter, anything to add to that?
Again, when we were talking there about caregiving, while it doesn't go super deep and wide on the topic of PTSD, an additional benefit of collaborating with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation is that they have done a full body of work in this arena, because when it comes to caregiving, it's not just the scars that are seen, it's the scars that are also unseen. And part of our military caregiving guide addresses some of that. But again, as Steve said, a lot of our states are doing other local collaborations and partnerships to, again, bring more of those content experts to the table and help to convene and connect our general population with those who need that help when they need it.
And Pete and Steve, that really, I think, has been a hallmark of the work that you've been leading for this VMF effort, in that we need to be able to be credible and authentic partners and conduits for those in our community who need support in the aftermath as they're serving in the military or are a veteran themselves. And I know that has been very important to you as you've helped shape this effort, that we are really trying to help create the right kinds of partnerships, create the right kind of events that do offer meaningful support to people. Pete, can you give me a little sense about what we're learning about some of these experiences that we're having in our state as we reach out and work with the veterans and military and their families?
Sure thing. Short answer is there is a whole lot of opportunity with this audience. There are a whole lot of questions and challenges facing this audience, and we're just scratching the surface. But the more we are out there in the community, the more that we're able to host local events, provide awareness to free resources and tools, the more of that feedback that we're getting, not just from individual families, individual veterans and military personnel that they've found useful, but also we're now getting some traction with the veteran service organization community, whether it be some of the national organizations like VFW or which is Veterans of Foreign Wars, or the Paralyzed Veterans of America, but down to local groups such as one that I'll share with you is Caregivers on the Home Front. It's a Midwest-based organization that provides caregiving tips and actual training to the caregivers for veterans and first responders. They reached out to us and actually want to use our new military caregiving guide as a central part of their training curriculum in the days ahead. And in fact, between this month, November, which is, as you said earlier, National Veterans and Military Families Month, through February, they're going to be doing so many different programs, forums, and trainings in the community with hands-on caregivers that they've asked us to provide them 500 military caregiving guides, and that's just for 4 months. So we're looking to obviously grow that collaboration there. There's another good one that I'm happy and proud to share with the volunteers today. The official announcement won't come until next week, so here's a little sneak peek. We're actually, we just reached an agreement with the Fisher House Foundation, which has 86 houses in 62 communities across the country. And what Fisher House does is that they provide free housing and comfort for family members of those who have veterans or military members who are being treated at DOD or VA medical facilities across the country. And that can be a pretty costly proposition, particularly for the lodging and the stay alone, given some of the treatments and the rehabilitation process and all that goes on. Fisher House has agreed to stock and share our military caregiving guide starting in early 2020 in every one of those houses. And what's spectacular about this collaboration, that means that on an annual basis, we could be helping out 25,000 family caregivers who are helping those with loved ones that are either veterans or military. So again, the more we're out there in the community, the more some of our free resources, our free tools are being noticed, as well as just AARP trying to step up and fill a void here, and we're getting some very positive feedback.
Well, that's fabulous. And again, entities of all sizes. And as Pete said, our participants today on today's call got that sneak preview of an announcement that will be made about AARP's collaboration with the Fisher House Foundation. Very impressive. We have a number of calls that have come in, Pete and Steve. So we're going to go right to the phones now and to Clayton in New York. Hello. Thanks so much for waiting. What's your question or comment for Steve Carter and Pete Jeffries?
Yes, they had spoken in regard to some veteran scams that were going on, and I had a question in regard to some of the charitable organizations. I'm a Vietnam vet and do give to military charities. I was wondering what their perspective was on the veterans of foreign wars and the disabled veterans, both which I give to, but don't have really great ratings by Charity Navigator and a couple other charity or agencies that kind of assess them.
Thank you, Clayton.
If they do have some military veterans agencies that they would recommend giving to, I would like to know.
Great. Thoughts or comments about that as far as input on charities? And
well, the first thing, Megan, going back to our work on fraud and scams, there are a number of charities that are basically fronts for scam artists. So it's always good to be vigilant when somebody approaches you about particularly if it's an organization that you've not heard of. Now, Clayton raised both VFW and Disabled American Veterans. Those are established legacy veterans organizations. I think that low rating that they have just may have something to do with the size of the organization. They're maybe not quite as modernized in their infrastructure as certain organizations, but we've had conversations with both. In fact, AARP was a corporate sponsor of the VFW National Convention this past summer in Atlanta, and have a growing relationship with them across the country. In fact, Pete and I will be meeting with them next week when we're in Washington, D.C., and we look to continue that relationship. We had a really fabulous experience at the convention this year and looking, again, to continue that. So it is important to look at those Charity Navigator ratings. Sometimes, there are some actually credible established organizations that don't get great ratings, but it's the ones that are the outright fraudulent ones, the ones that really don't provide any service, just collect money, and it's really a front for an outright scam that you need to be aware of.
Absolutely. And in a moment, I'll make sure that we share the Fraud Watch telephone line so that before the call ends, you'll have that information. We're going to continue on with another call going out to California this time. Hello, Ken. Thanks for waiting. What's your question or comment?
Oh, I already made it.
Well, I want to make sure that everyone has the benefit of hearing your voice and what your question is. I think it has to do with collecting supplies for vets.
Well, our chapter has a troop support division, and the person has been doing that for about 15 years. She collects light food and games and items like this that are sent to toothpaste, toothbrushes, things like that. And these are all sent to active duty military personnel overseas every month. And we get names of military personnel from our members and from the contacts our members have in their jobs, other organizations they belong to, their churches, mosques, or synagogues. And it may take a while for the items to get there, but eventually they do, and we get some wonderful thank you notes from the veterans that get these items.
Not veterans. Well,
excuse me, active duty military personnel, not veterans.
Great.
Ken, this is
now,
Steve.
as far as serving, as far as
hold on 1 second, Ken. Steve, one of our guest speakers, wants to just offer a comment back. Steve.
Oh, so Ken, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. So, Ken, if it's okay with you, I'd like to connect you with JR in our California office. He's the person who leads our work out there, and I'm sure he would be, willing to talk to you and see if there's anything we can do to support the work that you're doing at the chapter level. And where is Chapter 5151 located?
Campbell, California. It's right outside of San Jose in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Got it. Okay. Wonderful. Ken, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Okay. Thanks so much.
And Megan,
that's it. We appreciate all that you're doing, and it's an idea that we'd love to see other chapters and others in the community, whether or not you're with an AARP chapter or perhaps with your homeowners association or book club or faith community or just simply as a family effort. It's a really great reminder about the opportunity to collect supplies and help get them sent overseas. I know that there are some resources that we have on the createthegood.org website that talk about and give you ideas for how you might organize a supply drive for those who are serving in the military. So again, we'd love to hear about all of those good things that are happening there. Let's go ahead and we're going to continue on.
Megan, you want me just to jump in real quick?
Sure.
Thanks again to Ken for bringing that up, because that actually was one of our Veterans Military and Families charges to our 37 state offices that participate in deliberate and intentional outreach to the VMF community. We wanted them to, we want to be more than just words, we want to be about actions. And so we wanted to take time during November to do community service projects, and clearly those food drives, clothing drives, things of that sort play right into that. And so just want to thank California there for sharing that story, because we know that Wyoming, Kentucky, Kansas, there are a number of other states that also are doing those kinds of care packages for the troops over the holidays. Or like Kansas's effort is, it's in partnership with the VA medical system that they have a winter clothing drive, and that they have drop-off locations for hats, scarves, coats, things of that sort, and then those get dispersed throughout the state to the vulnerable veterans population. So again, anything and everything that our volunteers can do in the community, a rising tide lifts all ships.
Absolutely, and limited only by their creativity. So it's just wonderful. And again, I think comments like that can be a catalyst for others to think creatively of how they can jump in and get involved. We're going to continue on with the conversation, this time going to Sean up in Maine. Hi there, Sean. Thanks for waiting. What's your question or comment?
Hi. I have a good friend who is the commander of the American Legion here in Booth Bay Harbor, Maine, and he's been attending some meetings where they were reviewing statistics on mental health issues, homelessness, and suicide rates. And it turns out that Maine's suicide rate is among the highest in the nation. And we're very concerned about how can we work together in all our different services provided in the community to aid the people who are looking for jobs or needing companionship, or in any way being, feeling like suicide is an answer. So we're very concerned, and it's a big topic.
Thank you, Sean. A very challenging and difficult one. Pete or Steve, Any thoughts about resources that those who are dealing with suicide concerns or other mental health issues?
Yeah, this is really one of the most pressing concerns facing the veterans community right now, and it's really veterans of all age, be they more recent post 9/11 conflicts or even going back to the Vietnam era. One of the things, Sean, and you're probably aware of this, is that many of the people who are having these struggles with mental health and having suicidal thoughts aren't aware of resources that are available. And it's really a matter of connecting people to those resources. So what I would suggest is starting with your county veteran service agency and your state veteran service agencies to try and help connect people to those resources that are available. I mentioned the gentleman who spoke up at the resource fair that we had in Philadelphia this summer. That is a person who wasn't aware that there actually was a veterans office with the city of Philadelphia, and he was so relieved and so happy to hear that there was somebody he could actually talk to. Just that alone, helping somebody get that type of direct support is really one of the most important things we can do. And in some cases, again, people aren't aware, or maybe they're hesitant to seek out that help. And I think giving them encouragement and working with American Legion and other veterans advocates in your community, you can identify people and help connect them to the places where they can get help.
Yeah, and I'll just underscore what Steve said there. There are VA caseworkers in virtually every courthouse, county courthouse, or part of the county government apparatus, whatever the physical building is, across the nation. And those people, it's their duty and their responsibility to be there and help serve the veterans and former military community. And those should be, some of the first lines of contact. And again, it gets back to where is AARP's role in this? If we don't have the content expertise, we want to be helpful in trying to connect people to those who have that expertise. And that was one of our initial learnings, was just about the VA, not just benefits process, but just the way that the VA organizational structure is that there are veterans service officers in every county in America. And again, the closer we get to the front lines of where veterans and former military live, work, and play, the better off we will be in being able to connect people when they need services such as this. So we're very thankful that Maine brought this to the conversation today.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to continue on with more calls. We have time for just a few more. This time going to New York and welcoming Dorothy. Hi there, Dorothy. What's your question or comment? Hey, Dorothy, are you there?
I thought I was done. I wanted to say another thing. We have some of our veterans in our town are distanced from the nearest veterans hospital, so we have established a mobile unit, and that's very popular in this district, just so they don't have to run 30, 40 miles to a hospital. It's a very simple thing. If the money is there, it works. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Dorothy, thank you so much. And I know you mentioned that you have a large apartment building that has a floor for veterans only. So a lot of progressive thinking going on there in your part of the country. So
yeah, that's something new, and it really they seem to be very happy about that.
Good. Well,
because
thank you so much for sharing. That's great. So I know
Megan,
you're probably uncovering things. Yes, Pete.
So there, folks on the phone may be aware that in the last 3 or 4 months, a new federal law passed, which is called the Mission Act. As part of that, while being able to find transportation options is fantastic, and what a great way for the community to step up there. One thing that the VA is doing to try to, if you will, close the gap on veterans' health care services, particularly in a distant fashion, is that part of the Mission Act is going to create more telehealth opportunities, which AARP as an organization is a strong proponent of. In fact, our Georgia office is on the front lines working with the federal, with the Veterans Administration of the Southeast to increase access to telehealth services. So basically, a veteran can be in their living room and through a smartphone be able to get a number of their regular and in some cases irregular health ailments checked out by distance. And
that's amazing.
It's really going to fill a void there because it will start to better connect people and deliver quality health services.
Got it. Yeah, and it's just amazing with those kinds of technical solutions, and then also the practical solutions like a bus that was referenced. We're going to go to North Dakota now. And Myrna, hello. Thanks for waiting.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi. I'm part of a forgotten group. I happen to be the parent of a disabled veteran, an Iraq War veteran. And although he is taken care of by his wife and family, he's mobile, there's no one I can talk to. I would dearly love to see an online support group where we could share our concerns, because the VA has nothing for us. I called them one time, and the person on the phone was concerned that I was going to commit suicide.
Oh.
So if they could start something for us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I don't think any of us want to see you as feeling as though you're part of a forgotten group, and yet I can imagine that it feels lonely at times. Peter, Steve, have you heard of an online support group for loved ones?
So, I mean, the first thing, Myrna, as you were talking, I just did a quick Google search, and a few came up. I would suggest going there, but a few that came up are PTSD Survivors of America, the Caregiving Space, the Women of Our Vietnam Vets, the Women Behind the Warriors. So there are several options that you can find. But yes, that again, this gets back to something we talked about earlier, is understanding like the community of support that's out there and being able to work online. And that's, as Pete and I find out more also in talking with other organizations, we'll have Megan share information about online support groups. But that's what I would suggest you turn to, because having that community of support is really important. And, we definitely will be thinking about you. And when we talk about veterans, military, and families, that's what we mean. It's also not people who have just served, but also people who are taking care of their children who have served or are serving.
So true.
Well, and
so
there's
true.
there's one more, Steve. And in fact, we're going to meet with them next week. It's called the Blue Star Families, and their whole mission is to try to connect people who are going through some of the struggles and challenges that have faced our warriors after they leave the battlefield. And so if you want, check out bluestarfam.org. That's bluestarfam.org.
Well, thank you both, and hopefully it will be, the resources that you've mentioned will be of some support here in such a challenging situation. We've got time for one more call, and this time going to Illinois. And hi, Sabrina. Sabrina, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, Megan and Pete and Steve. I certainly appreciate this call. I just wonder if you guys had ever thought about making the AARP ID cards have like some kind of designation that says veteran. Just like here in Illinois, if you have your driver's license or state ID, it has a veteran tag on it, and I just think sometimes that would be helpful. Some veterans are okay, but some sometimes have audio or visual or speaking difficulties, and I think if they had that tag on there, that might be of help.
Well, thank you for
I
that.
I haven't thought of that or heard of that yet, but by golly, that is a fantastic idea, and Steve and I are going to be in the national office next week, and we will bring that to the attention to the appropriate folks inside the national office. Thank you. What a great suggestion.
Sabrina, we mentioned earlier that we've formed a team, and we have some people who work with AARP membership as part of our team. So we'll raise that next week. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick pause here because we've been talking about so many different resources, and I hope that our participants today feel like they're able to capture a number of ready-to-use practical tools and tips, beginning with the aarp.org/veterans page. So many rich resources there. that I know Pete and Steve have both referenced, and it really becomes a go-to spot for you and anyone you know who might benefit from some of these resources. And we also will be populating more on the volunteer portal with a libraries, in the libraries tab. There will be more resources that we've been talking about when you go to the AARP issue area topics folder, so that there'll be a folder specially designed for VMF and the resources, many of the things that we've talked about. So lots to capture there. But there is one other resource that I touched on briefly, and that is createthegood.org. That is both an initiative and a website. And I am delighted that my colleague Carole Ricks, who is the person who leads the Create the Good effort, is on the line. And Carole, can you quick give us a snapshot of what is Create the Good, and then we'll talk about what you've got happening for veterans coming up right now.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. Thank you for having me. So Create the Good is a website that allows people to find volunteer opportunities in their community. It also allows for individuals and organizations to post their volunteer needs. And we do have a dedicated page on createthegood.org for veterans. So we actively promote supporting veterans and their families through volunteerism, and that page, similar to the AARP.org page, is createthegood.org/veterans. And so there's information there on how people can volunteer to support veterans, as well as even a do-it-yourself guide, so that there's things that you can do in your community if you don't see a volunteer opportunity available in your area.
That's great, and we always welcome input and ideas. Those DIY, do-it-yourself kits are something that if you have an idea, if you're listening, you can actually create one and get it posted potentially right there on the createthegood.org/veterans page. Now, Carole, you have just launched a special way to recognize veterans, or those that serve and help and support veterans. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So here at Create the Good, we like to say thank you to our veterans and those that support them. So we launched on Veterans Day the Create the Good Honoring Heroes contest. It's an opportunity to share the wonderful work of nonprofit organizations that serve veterans in your community, or tell the story of a veteran who has made a difference in your life. So this is a contest. So let me start by sharing that the grand prize is $5,000. So I hope they get everyone's attention. So here's some key information on how to enter. It's a photo essay contest. So the photo can be no larger than 5 megabytes, and the essay can be no longer than 500 words. So in your essay, you can write about the impact of a nonprofit organization serving veterans in your community, or you can talk about the difference a veteran has made in your life. Or lastly, you can share the firsthand account of the impact from a military training or deployment. So the key is the deadline to enter is the end of this year, December 31st. And I want to give you a quick tip that some people might not know. You can actually submit more than one essay. You're limited to one per day, but you have between now and the end of the year to share multiple stories of how veterans or a nonprofit organization that supports veterans is making an impact on you or your community. So really quickly, I just want to tell you how the winners are selected. The public will be voting on the finalists. The public will be identifying 10 finalists, and voting will be happening also during the same time period between now and December 31st. Judges who are actually veterans, they will be reviewing the finalists and selecting the winner. The winner will be announced towards the end of January in 2020. AARP staff cannot enter, but volunteers absolutely can. So we want to make sure we're seeing your essays come through in the contest. So make sure you visit the site. It is createthegood.org/honoring heroes. Again, that's createthegood.org/honoring heroes, HONORINGHEROES.
Well, thank you, Carole, and we do hope that people will be inspired to submit a photo and a short video or short narrative about that noteworthy veteran or the group that's supporting that veteran or their family. So that's great. And again, createthegood.org/honoring heroes is the site where you go to place your entry. Please, we look forward to having more of those. We have one more call that we'd like to get to because it was an offer that might catch our attention as a resource for those who are perhaps in need of a little more support. And this time going out to Oregon. Betty Coe, thank you so much for calling in. Tell us very quickly what you have to offer.
Good afternoon. I'm not sure what I have to offer, but I can tell you that in Oregon and some other states, the driver safety program instructors have been invited and contracted with the VA departments for those drivers that are driving veterans to the VA hospitals, particularly those that have to go the distance. And so I just thought that was another piece of information that how AARP works together, and that there may be some other states that might be able to research out, particularly with the veterans of foreign wars and other drivers that are contracted with VA to get people to where they need to be for the appointments at the VA hospitals that are at some distance.
Well, thank you, Betty Coe. We do appreciate that. Steve?
Yeah, Betty, thank you so much for raising that. So I wasn't aware of that. We will definitely connect with our driver safety program colleagues nationally and see if that's something that we can replicate in other states across the country. That's fabulous to hear. Thank you, Betty.
Well, and Steve, we have just a moment or two left for a final comment from you and Pete. Do you want to kick it off?
I'm just going to final by saying, since this is National Veterans and Military Families Month, just thank you to all of you for being on the call today. Thank you for all of your past service. Thank you for taking care of loved ones in your family who are serving or have served. Just everything we've heard today from the volunteers just sums up why this is so important and why AARP can make such a difference in the lives of veterans, military, and their families. So thank all of you for joining today and for everything you do for AARP on a day in and day out basis.
Absolutely. And Pete Jeffries, you get to have the final word.
Well, thanks again, everybody. To echo Steve's comments, thank you again for all the service and sacrifice that you provided for if you're a veteran, if you're a family member of a veteran, because it is a group effort. And just a closing thought would be, if you want to get more involved in the Veterans, Military, and Families effort in your state, please reach out to your state office, let them know, because that can provide even more momentum for state offices to get out into the community, do such programming, and share our fantastic free resources and tools. And in the meantime, go visit aarp.org/veterans, aarp.org/veterans, and you can start to get even more information in the days ahead. Thanks again for being with us.
Well, Pete and Steve, thank you very much for taking the time to share these insights, these resources that all of us want to know more about, and consider ways that we can extend the reach of this set of resources to help veterans, military, and their families. So this call has been recorded. I will also make sure that we have a set of summary notes, because there was such a rich set of information that was shared in our conversation. And that summary note will be placed on the volunteer portal in the Libraries tab. We have a special folder within the issue area topics, and VMF is one of those issue areas. And you'll see very shortly a set of resources, especially these summary notes that will come out by tomorrow afternoon. So thank you all very much for being here. I have one other message. We have an opportunity for our volunteers to offer input to AARP's policy development team. And it's particularly around big health data. And it's the fact that there's a lot of tracking done on medical records and other things that can be used to track and improve the diagnosis and treatments of various diseases. But we also want to be mindful of any privacy concerns. So if you have thoughts about that, big health data, feel free to send an email to policy@aarp.org. Again, big health data, ideas and thoughts about that, send an email to policy@aarp.org, and we'll also have this featured on an upcoming Teletown Hall. Speaking of that, our next Teletown Hall will be Thursday, December 12th. We're going to skip our one over the Thanksgiving holiday. Didn't think you wanted to give up your Thursday for a Teletown Hall, so our next call is Thursday, December 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern, and we look forward to having you join us. Thanks so much. Have a great day.